Coming up on 7 hours and 15 minutes since launch today. Orion now over 33,000 miles from Earth. Our 4 crew members aboard getting settled in to the spacecraft. Most recently, Commander Reed Wiseman calling down.
Integrity, Houston, 1 minute to DTE handover.
Most recently, Commander Reed Wiseman calling down to discuss his portable computing device and making sure they can get it connected to the network. The crew is getting into the end of their day, a very long day for our astronauts. They are officially in their pre-sleep period, working through that checklist, and will soon be moving into the sleep portion of their day. They're only going to get about 4 hours of sleep before they need to wake up and monitor the perigee raise maneuver burn. That perigee raise burn will lift the lowest point of Orion's orbit around the Earth. And again, we are in a high Earth orbit, a little bit different than what we're used to aboard the International Space Station in a low Earth orbit. At any time, the International Space Station flies about 250 statute miles over the planet, and obviously we are now over 33,000 miles away from our home planet. That perigee raise burn will set Orion up in its proper positioning ahead of the translunar injection burn tomorrow, one of the major milestones on the crew's timeline tomorrow. And that translunar injection burn will be what sends us to the moon and also commits us to coming home. Once the perigee raise burn is complete tonight, that'll be around 6:15 a.m. Houston time, the crew will get to go back to sleep for almost 5 more hours before they wake up. So they will get a total night's sleep, just divided because of that perigee raise burn. This evening, after completing the proximity operations demonstration, the crew has been working in the cabin to stow everything that they've been using so far and configure it for the rest of the mission. Tomorrow, they'll have time for space adaptation, helping them get used to the microgravity environment. They all have a midday meal scheduled at the same time. Of course, again, they will monitor those burn operations and conduct some exercise.
Integrity Houston, comm check on DTE pass.
Houston, we have you loud and clear, Alice.
Loud and clear.
Excellent. We're just going to continue running through cabin config.
We copy.
And Amy, I got a stowage note for you. We stowed our used comfort garments in Ziploc bags in the F4 locker, in the off-nominal waste management system comfort garment bag, which was empty.
We copy.
7 hours, 26 minutes since the launch of Orion atop the Space Launch System rocket for the Artemis II mission. Our 4 astronauts now over 34,000 miles away from Earth. Throughout the mission, astronaut voices, images, video, and vital mission data
Houston's here. Say again.
For the right RHC, C2 RHC, is there any way you all can open the RPC for that and save us the commanding?
Checking.
Commander Reed Wiseman calling down about the rotational hand controller that was used earlier during the proximity operations demonstration. And again, those communications and data throughout the mission has to travel thousands of miles and is carried on signals from NASA's powerful communications systems, including the Near Space Network and the Deep Space Network. Let's learn a little bit more about those.
NASA's Artemis II will send 4 astronauts around the moon, preparing humanity for a long-term lunar presence and future journeys to Mars. Enabling communication and navigation for this test flight are NASA's Near Space Network and Deep Space Network. With antennas around the world and a fleet of relay satellites, the networks will deliver vital data to and from Earth through all phases of the mission. The networks are seamlessly integrated at NASA's Johnson Space Center in Houston, Texas, where Mission Control coordinates the network handovers. These transfers represent a delicate dance between the 2 networks, exchanging support as the mission shoots toward the moon. On the launch pad and during their early orbit phases, NASA's Orion spacecraft and Space Launch System rocket will rely on communications and tracking services from the Near Space Network. After its translunar injection burn, the Deep Space Network's global array of antennas will serve as Orion's primary communication support during lunar orbit. As the mission journeys farther into space and away from Earth, signal strength weakens and bandwidth is conserved for crew communications. The astronauts will have a near constant connection to Earth, ensuring their safety on a journey farther into space than ever before. We say near constant because as Orion goes behind the moon, a planned loss in communications will occur. The Deep Space Network will be standing by to reacquire the signal as Orion reappears. The Artemis II mission also provides an opportunity to test new capabilities. Using laser links, NASA will periodically transmit Orion data to showcase the benefits laser communications could have for future human spaceflight missions. The data from Orion, sent by radio signals or laser links, is massive. The mission is gathering images, data, and video, while also generating details about mission health and crew voice files. All of that data gets processed here on Earth, where systems compress it for efficiency. In the future, we'll upgrade these systems on Earth so that image and video clarity improve with each moon mission. With the Artemis II test flight, we're evaluating the communications infrastructure that will help carry us into the future as we explore the moon and journey forward to Mars.
Seven hours, 30 minutes since launch of Orion, and we are on,
And Integrity Houston, affirm we will perform the right RHC RPC open command from the ground.
Okay, Amy, thank you very much. That helps.
That's Capcom Amy Dill down near the bottom of your screen, and to her right, NASA astronaut Raja Chari communicating with commander of this mission, Reed Wiseman, currently aboard Orion. Wiseman initially called out about the rotational hand controller, and Dill confirmed they would activate the RPC, the remote power controller, to alleviate the crew from having to execute that action. as I was discussing, the crew went on the Deep Space Network just before their proximity operations demonstration earlier tonight. They became the first crew in over 50 years to use the Deep Space Network, as we continuously have people in low Earth orbit aboard the International Space Station, and they use a tracking data relay satellite system. Again, we are going to continue to hear fewer calls from the crew as they are now in their pre-sleep portion of their day. During pre-sleep, the crew gets ready to go to bed for the night. That includes everything from hanging up their sleeping bags to stowing any equipment and personal items to make sure they're not floating about the spacecraft. They also eventually, once all of the rest of their checklist is complete, will install some window shades over the windows aboard Orion. They have the option to do so if they choose. They also have the opportunity to put on earplugs and sleep masks. Of course, this is all crew preference. And eventually, last but not least, turn off the cabin lights and get some rest. 7 hours and 40 minutes into the flight of Orion on the Artemis II mission. Overall, about a 10-day mission. The crew is winding down their day. It's been a long day for them. They woke up about 8 hours prior to launch, so they're on almost a 16-hour-long day at this point, being that it takes quite a while to get suited up and ready for the mission. After launch, the spacecraft completed the perigee raise maneuver and then the apogee raise burn before the crew was able to conduct the prox ops demo. That is when pilot Victor Glover manually flew Orion, the first time anyone has done so, and maneuvered it around the ICPS, the interim cryogenic propulsion stage, which had just detached from the spacecraft. That demonstration was all to help us prepare for future missions in which Orion will need to dock to a lunar lander and descend to the lunar surface. Following the prox ops demonstration, Orion completed the upper stage separation burn, giving it distance between Orion and interim cryogenic propulsion stage itself having a disposal burn. Since then, the astronauts have been working about the cabin, stowing their suits that they wore into orbit, configuring the cabin for the rest of the mission, and they also conducted their private medical conferences, speaking with teams here on the ground about how they were feeling after their launch day. They are now in their pre-sleep portion of the day. They're going to get a few hours of sleep before the apogee raise burn, the perigee raise burn. That'll be at 12:55 MET, so about 6:30 a.m. Houston time, just a little bit before that. That perigee raise will lift the lowest point of Orion's orbit around the Earth. We are in a high Earth orbit, now over 35,000 miles from Earth. 7 hours and 56 minutes into the flight of Orion on the Artemis II mission, our 4 astronauts in their pre-sleep period as Orion is in a high Earth orbit. We're spending approximately 24 hours in this high Earth orbit to allow the crew to check out all of the systems aboard the spacecraft before committing to going to the moon in tomorrow's translunar injection burn. This is a test flight, so everything with humans aboard this flight is being tested for the first time. This time in high Earth orbit, that approximately 24 hours, allows us to check all of these systems and make sure that they work properly and that we are comfortable flying humans farther than we've gone in over 50 years.
Houston, integrity for cabin transit config steps.
Houston's with you.
First off, can we get a go for step 7?
Checking. Christina, you are go for step 7.
Copy. And I can give you step 8 is complete. Counterbalance pressure is 2,600.
We copy.
NASA astronaut Christina Cook calling down to teams here in Artemis Flight Control at Johnson Space Center in Houston, Texas. They're continuing to step through some cabin configuration procedures while they're in their pre-sleep period, making sure everything is set up properly before they get some sleep for tonight. On the bottom right of your screen, you see Capcom Amy Dill down toward the left, and up toward the top of that screen is Flight Director Jeff Radigan. It's been just over 8 hours into the flight of Artemis II. A successful liftoff and ascent for Orion into a high Earth orbit where we find them now, over 36,000 miles away from our home planet.
Houston, integrity in cabin config, step 4 and step 7 are complete.
Copy. Step 4 and 7 complete. And we wanted to let Reed know that we are done remoting into his PCD-1. We were able to resolve the issue with Optimus, and for Outlook, we were able to get it open. It will show offline, which is expected.
Okay, he copies.
Those calls from Capcom to the crew about an issue Commander Reed Wiseman was experiencing earlier with his PCD, his personal computer device, or portable computer device, I should say, which is how he accesses the internet during the flight. One of those things being Optimus, or the timeline for the crew that they use each day, as well as his email. And the teams here on the ground have worked to properly configure that device for his use. As the crew continues their pre-sleep period of today's timeline, some quick facts about Orion. Of course, our 4 crew members are in the crew module, and they have about 60% more cubic volume than Apollo, 60% more. That's about the size of 2 minivans, in total 330 cubic feet habitable volume. When we had a view inside earlier, we did see some of their displays and controls, including the 3 display units that the crew is able to monitor and help command the vehicle with. Earlier, we heard pilot Victor Glover using some of the rotational and translational hand controllers. There are 2 rotational hand controllers and 2 translational hand controllers. And something that the crew will be working on tomorrow is exercising. This will be the first time that they exercise in Orion, and one of the devices they will be using is called the flywheel. This is a compact and power-free system that allows daily aerobic and resistive workouts aboard Orion. The flywheel supports exercises like rowing, squats, and deadlifts, and they are able to adjust the resistance levels as needed. Of course, aboard the International Space Station, we have much larger devices used for exercise for the crew members, but on Orion, in a much more compact space, we needed a more compact solution. In this animation, you can see the 4 solar arrays aboard Orion. There is a camera on the tip of each solar array. We had some beautiful views of Earth from one of those cameras earlier, and we are looking forward to some incredible views of the moon as we fly by on flight day 6. Each of those solar arrays has 3 panels on it, and each of those panels is about 6.5 feet by 6.5 feet. So the length of each array nearly total 23 feet. Each of those arrays would provide enough electricity to power 2 3-bedroom homes. 8 hours and 23 minutes into the flight of Orion, the first flight of humans on this spacecraft. Our 4 crew members, Reed Wiseman, Victor Glover, Christina Cook, and Jeremy Hansen, lifted off today atop the Space Launch System rocket from Kennedy Space Center in Florida. They had a smooth ride to orbit and have since completed all required burns to put them in the proper high Earth orbit where they are now. Earlier today, we also saw them transition to the Deep Space Network. This is the first time in over 50 years that we've had humans back on the Deep Space Network. We have had humans living and working aboard the International Space Station for over 25 continuous years now, but they they communicate through the tracking data relay satellite systems. That was one of many milestones for the crew today. We also saw them complete the perigee raise maneuver, the apogee raise burn, modifying Orion's orbit around the Earth, and keeping us in that high Earth orbit. Being in this high Earth orbit for over 24 hours allows the teams and the crew to check out the systems aboard the spacecraft before conducting the translunar injection burn tomorrow. The translunar injection burn is what will commit the crew and the spacecraft to flying by the moon on flight day 6, and that burn also serves as the deorbit burn for the spacecraft. The ability to use the translunar injection burn as the deorbit burn is because of a free return trajectory, where we're harnessing the moon and the Earth's gravity to pull us back home. Crew aboard Orion also conducted the proximity operations demonstration, namely pilot Victor Glover manually flying Orion in relation to the recently separated interim cryogenic propulsion stage. He commanded the spacecraft to move in as close as 10 meters or 30 feet away from the interim cryogenic propulsion stage and a faux docking target, essentially, allowing them to practice and learn what it's like to manually fly the spacecraft. This helps us understand and learn a lot about flying Orion manually, as we may need to do so for future docking operations ahead of lunar landing missions. Shortly thereafter, the upper stage separation burn occurred, taking Orion farther away from the ICPS, and that interim cryogenic propulsion stage had its own disposal burn thereafter. Since that time, the crew has been stowing their suits, getting their cabin configured, getting ready for bed. They had their private medical conference in which they were able to speak with teams on Earth about how they were feeling following the day's events. They are now in their pre-sleep period and are configuring the spacecraft by hanging up their sleeping bags. They also have the option to put some window covers over the windows in Orion to make sure no other light comes in, and we will get them some sleep. Their sleep period tonight is interrupted by the perigee raise burn, so they'll get about 4 hours of sleep here to start, and then wake up for those perigee raise burn operations. Perigee raise burn means we are lifting the lowest point of Orion's orbit around the Earth. And after that's complete, the crew will go back to sleep for about another 4 hours before they wake up and start flight day 2. You're looking at a live view from Artemis Mission Control here at Johnson Space Center in Houston, Texas. We are in the White Flight Control Room just down the hall from the International Space Station Flight Control Room where you usually see us. And this is the Orbit 1 shift. You'll probably start to see some folks filtering in and out of the room as we will expect handover to take place around 2:30 a.m. Central Time. Just like Mission Control, we'll be monitoring the flight of the crew for 24/7 all throughout the mission. We will also be live during that time. You can find us as you're watching us right now on YouTube on NASA's account.